And we are back with the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar. Episode number 9. We're just throwing out bangers back to back to back, having great guests. This week, I have my buddy Dawson Windham. Dawson and I have known each other for a couple years. He's competed at the last 2 Ghost Clashes. I've been seeing him come up in the sport from his days in the USAPL, coming over to the WRPF. He's come down to Miami. He was at my gym grand opening. Good friend of mine, Southern gentleman. I'm excited to hear his story and his come up in lifting. And welcome, Dawson.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. So kind of the format, the way that we do these things is we're going to start just by kind of getting to know you and your lifting history. What got you to the sport of powerlifting? Obviously, this being a powerlifting based podcast. Before we kind of get into present day, this year, this day and age of powerlifting and how it's changed, because you, like many of my previous guests, have been doing this for a while. Your first open powerlifting competition was 2015, 8 years ago. So in the grand scheme of things, even though you're in your 20s, you're already over the hill, right? Compared to these young buck nowadays.
Yeah, I got some mileage.
You got some mileage, bro. So take me through it, man. What was Dawson doing before powerlifting, and what led him to powerlifting?
So I used to play soccer, baseball. Those were my sports. I did jiu-jitsu for a little bit. I kind of did that at the same time I started lifting. And I just didn't really like it that much. I had a friend, his name was Benji Floyd, and he was just a redneck that had like a weight bench in his house in his back room, and we would just max out in there like 4 times a week. And I was like, man, this is fun as fuck.
I feel like you have to be a redneck to be named Benji.
Yes, he redneck as fuck, and he's still a good friend of mine. But we would just max out in the bench press, and that evolved into me getting. I don't even think I got my first membership, but at Planet Fitness, if you pay like $20, you get tanning and you get to bring a guest. And I was like 14, so I don't think I was old enough to get like a membership anywhere. So I would go to Planet Fitness with him, and like people shit on it all the time. I'm so glad I started there, like because I had lat pull downs, I had dumbbells that were not like they're 70s, but I mean I was a pussy at the time, so it worked. It was all I really needed. And it got me into a real gym later on. I started going to a different gym called Extreme Fitness, and that was more like a bodybuilding gym where people were actually training. And I thought I was hot shit leaving Planet Fitness, benching 2 plates on the Smith, and I walked in there and benching 185s hard, and then you see grown men benching 3, 4 plates. I was like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do.
But you were still pretty young at this point.
I mean, I was like 15,
Oh
14,
wow, okay.
15. I was a child. My mom would give me rides to the gym after school. And then she'd go back to work because she worked probably 30 to 45 minutes away from like where I live. So I needed something to do with my time. That's why I would do like jiu-jitsu, sports, lifting, something just to kind of keep me occupied. I actually started my interest. The reason I started lifting that young, and lifting was my hobby for the longest time. People look, it's like, oh, you started in 2015. That's where your first meet. It's like, no, that I wanted to compete for a long time before I did. I was that kid that was not ready to compete, or was not strong enough, or was not big enough, or whatever the bullshit excuse is. I was right there with you. But in my defense, it was like more so bodybuilding. It was because like I was 170 pounds, and like all these dudes were already mass mutants. I'm looking like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler. Those were people I like watching. It's like, dude, I'm small. I'm fragile in comparison to these people. I thought natural bodybuilding was a joke. It didn't really look that cool. I like watching Matt Ogus, so I mean, he kind of made it cool. But even compared to the big boys, it's like, eh. And whenever I would like go work out around these old heads in Extreme Fitness and all these bodybuilders, they're always like reps, reps, reps. And I was watching Matt Ogus, and it was like progressive overload to get bigger. It was simply add 5 pounds, do a set of 5 and add 5 pounds, then do a set of 5, add 5 pounds the next week, and just keep doing that. Like, dude, you're a power lifter. I was like, no, I'm just trying to get bigger. And I got bigger. I got stronger. They worked at the same time. To me, it wasn't this mutually exclusive thing because I could see otherwise through my own training, my own progress, even though I had like grown ass men looking at me and be like, that's not how it works. And
So
granted,
what was your perception of powerlifting during this time? Did you know what that meant as a term?
actually, there's one fucker who walked up to me one day when my mom was dropping me off at the gym. His name is Bert Timmons, or everyone called him Cool Breeze. The locals know him. He was like an old head, man, like West Side kind of old head. And he walked up to me, and he was like, he saw me, he knew my mom. So the first thing he said was, "Hey, man, if you need any advice, I would love to teach you." And I looked at him. I was like, this guy's fat as fuck. You know, like, why do I want your advice? Like, I don't, dude, I have abs. You don't have abs. I have like a 14-year-old brain. I didn't realize he was strong as shit, and he actually knew about training. Because I'm just like, why do I want to be a big fat guy? Why do I go to
Right.
the gym to be fat? And I just assumed that was all power lifters at the time. So that's kind of what more so why I went towards like the bodybuilding route. Um, but I did think lifting heavy was fun. Like that was definitely the coolest thing to do. Like I loved like take like I started squatting like 95 pounds when I was like 14. By the time I was 15, it might have been like 265, 275, and just being able to clap the plates on there and just like getting the new 45. It was always the most satisfying feeling in the world to me. You know, whether I knew that was powerlifting or not, like it was more so just training and training heavy than powerlifting that I enjoyed. And I still feel that way. Like the idea of competing, like at Ghost, it was stressful as fuck. Like as I did with this podcast, I showed up late and it was my own fucking fault. So that made it like hard, very stressful. Anxiety is very high, but competing is where you go prove yourself. That's where it becomes legit. That's when it gets put on open powerlifting and you can talk your shit. You can't do that with gym numbers, but training it
That's where
was
it's fun. And it's where it
and
should
it's
be fun.
still, yeah, that's what it's all about. Like we compete like 2 3 days a year. It's really not shit. Like I train fucking almost every day, you know. Maybe I'll make myself rest like once every 6 days if I have to. But even then, I'm like gonna go do some shit. Like I'm gonna do yoga. I'm gonna go walk like 15K steps. Like I'm gonna be very physically active and try to push myself in some way.
And I've already observed that. I know that from your social media. That's one of the things that we're going to definitely talk about and get on is your training style currently over the years, et cetera. Because you train like a freaking madman.
Thank
So
you.
I'm excited to hear about that a little bit later in the episode. But so continuing kind of those days at that gym, and you knowing what powerlifting was, like you said, you didn't compete until you were 17, but you were
Mhm.
essentially doing powerlifting style training, progressive overload, pushing intensities, pushing weights, getting stronger and stronger until you felt like you were at a point where you were strong enough to compete, right?
I actually never even realized powerlifting was like powerlifting competitions were like in my grasp because the idea of doing like bodybuilding shows was so far away. I actually got into modeling a little bit when I was 16. There's some pictures of me in like Instagram and on Instagram in New York. I cut down. I dropped like 20 pounds in like 2 weeks to go take pictures with some random men. It was never again, bro. It was so opinionated and just so weird. And after that, I was like, yeah, this shit's gay. Like, this is not for me. I don't want to do it. And then, like, there's a guy's name's Patrick Stroop. He walked into the gym and he saw me. I was in the back room deadlifting like 515. I was running Candido's 6 week program. It was either 515 or 525. I was in Darlington. And he was like, kid, how old are you? I was like, I'm 16. And he's like, holy shit. He was like, I mean, because he's like this USAPL judge and he's been doing this for numerous years and he's strong. I mean, he's got like a 550 deadlift. Like, he's not a nobody. But I definitely, as a random 16-year-old child who knew jack shit, I was pretty strong, you know? So he took notice. He's like, hey, you should do a meet. I was like, really? And he said, yeah. He like wrote me a free program for it. He didn't like coached me, but he gave me like a template on Excel that wasn't Candido, and it was like DUP, um, like 4x6, 5x5, 6x4, very basic, but it worked fucking exceptionally. And he gave my, if you go look at like my videos of my first meet, I think I'm wearing a 3XL singlet at like 200 pounds because he gave it to me and he was like 260 fucking pounds. He's like, dude, it doesn't matter. I was like, I showed up to my first meet, no handler, no coach. The singlet was oversized. I was missing commands. I didn't know shit, man. I still like had the time of my life. I think I only went in like 8 for 9. I think I only missed one command, but they were also like helping me. Like I'd walk it out, and I remember like the spotters and lawyers like, wait for the start, you know.
Yeah.
They knew I was a kid and I was stupid. Like they were gonna make sure I had like a good day. It wasn't because I like put it together. It was because like I showed up and everyone like fucking helped me. I was doing like speed work in the warm up room at my first meet with some random guy teaching me how to bench. He's like, "You head kid can't come up, kid. Like you gotta keep that head down. This USAPL. You gotta be ready for the ball." And I was like, "That's what I liked about it." You
Yeah.
know?
And I'll tell you what, going back to 2015, it's like powerlifting was much, much, much more underground at that point. And it's not like today, because now you see some freakishly strong 16-year-old, and that's just the norm. It's just expected at this point that these genetic freaks or kids that now have, access to a surplus of knowledge in the internet and stuff, they're coming out and it's normal nowadays. But back then,
And
there's much more of a rarity, and then you have like it's a tighter knit community. Not to say it's not very community based now, but it was just tighter
It
then.
was definitely smaller. Yeah, and
Yeah.
no one did it. I was trying to explain even what gyms were like back then, man. That extreme fitness, I ended up getting kicked out of there for deadlifts because people didn't deadlift in gym. People didn't squat in gym. That wasn't like a thing. Now people squat and deadlift everywhere. Things have changed so much.
Well, it's funny because just to go on a side tangent, it's like kids are fucking spoiled nowadays. Like
Oh
all
God, they have everything.
my
They
gym members are spoiled brats, and I want to
they got
slap
the, they
them
got the
like
new
I'm their
slippers.
dad all the time because like what I came up in is I started in CrossFit to get sober in 2012. I was too big for CrossFit. I found powerlifting formally in 2013, started doing 5-3-1, then the cube method. By the end of 2013, I started a powerlifting club in the CrossFit gym I worked at. But we had an area in the corner of that CrossFit gym that it was about 10 by 10 with 2 half racks, 2 wobbly ass benches that go from incline to flat, all mismatched 45s, and old rusty barbells. And that's all we trained on. And in 2015 or 2016, we were there until that was my gym until 2017, when then I started to go work for Hybrid. 2016, we went to one of the biggest meets in Florida, and I took a team of 30 people. 30 of my people that were CrossFitters, that just decided they wanted to compete. And from a coaching standpoint, that was the most hectic thing ever. But all these people shared this one tiny corner and 2 benches and 2 racks and rusty, gross bars and deadlifting on wood insert platforms. Now, God forbid you got to deadlift on a wood insert, a sumo deadlift on a wood insert. But they all had a blast. They all did great and they never complained.
I
Now,
mean,
oh my God, I have a wood insert platform at my gym. Oh, no, no one can deadlift on that. No, 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 no.
you spoiled them though. That's your fault. You gave them that facility. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but it's the new generation in general, though, because even
Dude,
the top ends, the people who come from a different powerlifting gym.
yeah.
Oh, we're gonna wait. We can't squat on a half rack. We need to wait for the
Dude,
combo.
the first gym, I was the only power lifter in my high school or in my town other than Stacy Burr when I competed in 2015. That's how me and her like knew each other and came up because we were the only ones. There was not a single other person. Now, if I that town was called Florence. If I went to the same gym now and I walked in at any time of the day, there's going to be like 4 or 5 power lifters. There's going to be people lifting. There's power bars the gym owner has bought for the place. When I did it, I was this kid by myself walking around in short shorts with socks up to my knees, sniffing cat piss and screaming with the Zumba class going on behind me. I was just this lone outcast weirdo fuck, like now it's like cool and now everyone does it. But and it's also like just how the gyms have expanded and how places like Ghost exist, Power Build. The fact that these kids like they can go watch me and see like how I've changed in transition. It's like now they have my freebie program. They got Derek's freebie program. Candido put it out a new one. There's 1,000 YouTube videos. You have Marcellus, Joey Flex breaking it down on their YouTube channel in detail on how they're doing. And everyone's pretty much telling you how to do it for fucking free.
Right.
And you have the touch of all this at your fingertips and with something in your pocket. I came up, bro, and it was like I did an Arnold Encyclopedia. Some dude gave me that at Extreme Fitness, my first gym when I started, and it was like do 100 pull-ups. Like, yeah, like that is it. That is my routine. It was no optimal bullshit. It was like this is hard and you should do it. And
Yeah,
then
you still train with some crazy stuff. I'll see you be like 10 by 10 lap pull downs with 60-second rest. And I'm like, damn, man, I want to try to do that, but my back's going to explode if I try.
I was only using like 100, it was 10 by 8, and that was 150 pounds with 60 seconds rest. And that's Josh Bryant, man. The way he approaches accessories is different. Like you'll go in, you'll do like 2 sets of bench. They'll be like kind of hard, but it's like whatever. And then you get the triceps after, and you want to die halfway through. And then you have like 2 more tricep exercises. It's unbelievable.
Interesting. We'll circle around to that in a little bit. So let's go. Let's stay on track. Let's go back to that first competition because going to that first competition, 17 years old, going 8 for 9, squatting 496, benching 352, and deadlifting 550. 17 in 2015. That's pretty fucking badass.
That was like I had like 40 state records because it was like teen 2, teen 3, junior, squat, bench, deadlift, total. It was like all of them. Like since that was my first meet, I was convinced I was Jesse Norris. You know what I mean? Like I walked there, and since I was 17, I was a child, dude. That was the worst experience for me to have for my first possible meet. No, like
it's got your ego so high.
God, I went to the gym and all the people that helped me get there and I listened to and like helped me, like I'm like fuck you. Like I know more than you. Like
Yeah, I have
so,
an 87 state
how,
record.
how dare you speak to me like you know more than me? Did you see my total? And then I bombed out of nationals like 6 months later. So
Right.
you
So
know,
look, I have your open powerlifting history looking, and then so then the next year, Raw Nationals, big second step for a competition, big attempt selection increases from your first competition if you wouldn't have bombed out. So your rate of progress through all this period, you're still only 18, but you attempted a 402 bench. Like
I
that's
benched an
pretty
American
nuts.
record. I benched 391, and I was like 190 pounds at like 18. That was when no one was doing it too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it was a different time. I was always a good bencher. I benched 265 when I was a freshman because I was just like my ass was off the bench. It was a fat pad, but I just trained upper body all the time. Like when I said I started maxing out on bench 4 times a week with Benji, I kept that trend. Like everyone's like, you bench too often, you do upper body too frequently. I was like, it keeps working.
Right.
If it's so wrong, why is it working? Like Ed Cohn said something in a super training video. He was like, look, even if you're doing something I think it's stupid, but it's working, it's working. It
Right.
doesn't matter. Maybe he figured something out. So I was like, maybe I did figure something out. And then it probably benching 3-4 times a week for 10 years. That probably is why my bench is my strong suit now. Just from fucking doing more repetitions than majority of people to fucking exist on bench press. It's kind of simple to me, you know.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
You got a monster bench too. I remember you hit 540. Was it 540 or 551 not too long ago?
540.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
remember seeing that. I was like, what the fuck, man? Because it came out of nowhere.
It did. It did. It was literally that dad strength because I put on so much weight when Lauren was pregnant and just eating all kinds of shit. I was, 10, 15 pounds heavier than I was when I competed. And I finally got a really focused training cycle in after the baby was born. And it was freaking fantastic. And then literally the week that I peaked was before the American Pro, and I hit like all these new all-time PRs. And that week, like my whole arm started going numb, and then I
Mm-hmm.
found out I have all these cervical herniations that I don't know if that happened during the peak or I've had them, and then everything just went back downhill. But thus is life. Everyone's like, dude, you're gonna compete again. You're gonna compete again. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But it's funny because that's actually something else I have noted for us to talk about is our unconventional bench style.
Mm-hmm.
But so both of us have very much like a sink and heave style of bench, right? So
Yeah, everyone hates on it, but I bench 500 fucking pounds, and so do you. Is how I see
exactly.
it. So everyone can have their opinion on it. It's like, oh, well, you should put your feet in front of the bench and soft touch. And I tried it. Feels like shit.
You
I don't.
literally bench probably like 100, 120 pounds less.
I would Larson press more.
Correct.
I,
Yes.
if,
Same.
if I could just grab the bench with my legs, I would literally Larson press more. No, I've had, like I said, I benched an American record. That was my first American record when I bombed out at Raw Nationals, which I didn't get to keep because I did bomb out. But there was a trend of me always setting like American records on bench in my USAPL days, collegiate nationals or whatever. I was always a good bencher and always like kind of ahead of my peers in that one lift for some reason.
And were you always benching with that sink style, even dating
Yes.
back to
Like
then?
if you go look at my first meet, the only real difference between my bench technique now and then is I was wearing like squat shoes, and I've probably learned to stay a little bit tighter, but like my foot position, my grip width, everything is pretty much the fucking same.
And I'll tell you, I know exactly who I emulated from my days because I've sank also since
Was it Dan
2014.
Green?
Dan Green, brother,
I knew
that's
it.
the man.
I watched so much Dan Green. I don't think I meant like everyone's like sinking's bad. It's bad for your shoulders. Like, why do I bench more than you?
Yeah.
You just
And
kept
it's like
working.
and people didn't even really question it back then because powerlifting was so,
Mhm.
unknown as much anyway. At least in my CrossFit gym, everyone was just watching me and they knew I benched more. I was benching in the mid 300s. And but watching Dan Green, that was all I watched. He had a monster bench. He was benching 540, 550 and dropping it. Like he had the extremely fast
His
eccentric and
head
this
would come up.
explosive speed. Exactly.
It would like almost crush his spine between the bar and the bench, bro. He would take I try not to sink. Like if you watch me bench like 405, 455, I don't sink. As I get heavier, it kind of just
Right. It's
happens
more and more. Exactly.
a little bit. Like it's or as I get closer to like a more fatigued state as I'm doing like reps. But it seems like he would just like whatever he unracked, he would just yeet into his chest and like head come up and throw it back. It was,
Exactly.
but he was an initial inspiration, I'm sure. But Mark Bell was another one. He'd have his head come up and sink and throw it. And I loved watching those super training videos. Then there was Jeremy Hornstra was one who like I looked at. I was like, well, if he can fucking do it, and it works this way because he was the best bencher in the alive before Julius Maddox came along. in my opinion. It's like 672 at 242. People are like, oh, well, his elbows were a little. I don't give a shit. That's 672 at 242. If his elbows were, powerlifting was at a different time, like that. But it is just godly. So I looked at it, I was like, well, if he can bench like that, then I can bench like that, and it'll work. You know, I feel like, dude, I feel like now so many people think there's one way to do things, and it's so painful. That's why when I do like my tutorials and my videos, I'm like, here's how I do it. Here's my thought process on why. It's not like here's how you need to do it. Here's the best way to do it. It's just like here's what I do.
Right.
You
And
know,
it's finding what works for you, but also like when people they hate on the sinking bench because it looks so unconventional, but it's like we have mechanical disadvantages doing that also. The same way that someone who'll do a soft touch also has a disadvantage. With a soft touch, you might be hovering. It might take longer for you to get the press command, as the same way when you sink, it might take longer for you to get the press
that
command.
pause might kill you because you're having to support it and hold it so long where me and you get arrested on ourselves a little bit.
Exactly.
The way I think about it, I'm holding 500 pounds with my legs. It's a lot easier than holding it with my arms.
Right.
You know?
And when you think about it, it's like when that bar is absorbed in your body. And again, when you see us, it's almost like a catapult. We also have the room for more butt popping, right? So it's something we have to work on to ensure it doesn't happen in competition. Because the same way that someone who soft touches can have those mechanical issues, we have those little things that can cause red lights. So it's a give and a take. But at the end of the day, it's all about figuring out what's going to make you move the most amount of weight. There's no
What
fucking
kind of
style
works for
points in this
you?
sport.
And I feel like that's what this sport is missing, is more people talking about what works for you and figuring it out. Because every video I see is like, you need to do this, you should do it this way, you got to do it this way. I was talking about this at my seminar, and we were talking about hypertrophy, and like back in the day, it was like, again, the Arnold Encyclopedia. You'd look at Tom Plass, Dorian Yates, Mike Mincer. All of them would train in a different way, and all of them were extremely successful and got to the top, and they found what works for them. But I don't feel like that's something people like do anymore. Because like, look, have you seen all those people doing like 800-pound low bars with that shit like below their rear delt?
Yeah.
I would never tell someone to do that ever. I would never, not once, coach someone to do. If I did that, I would break my fucking arm. That would not work for me. But that I'm not gonna like look. I wouldn't tell someone to do it. But the fact that this motherfucker exists and he's doing it is enough proof that it works for someone. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's
It's
like,
funny. It's kind of crazy though, because I actually someone in my gym that I used to coach was recently doing it, and I was like, "Hey, be careful! It's not allowed in competition." Because in USPA, I remember from my USPA days, they have a rule in the rule book where the bar can't be more than like 3 centimeters below your rear delt, and they have images in the rule book that it can't be like excessively low. Like,
I
and
think
they'll
that's a good
you,
rule.
huh?
Especially, I think that's a good rule, especially with all these kids breaking their arms. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
and the bars sliding off their back, literally. So
Especially endangering the spotters.
at my recent
Local.
USAPL, and I told him, I was like, that's not allowed. He's like, what are you talking about? Because he used to compete USAPL. And I went and looked through the rule book and I see it's not in there anywhere. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I showed him where it was in the USPA, not in the USAPL. I'm like, okay. Then there's this really young kid who goes to compete at my recent USAPL meet that I hosted. He was like 14 years old, and he has that extremely low style. And on his second attempt, what happened? Slid right off his fucking back. You
14
know?
years old too.
Yeah, slid
How
right
was he
off his
squatting?
freaking back.
Do you remember?
Mid
No.
300s or something like that. I don't know. One of the million young kids, but it's like it's dangerous, and then it can slow down the meet. But again, if it works for them, it works for them. You have to look at the benefits, the disadvantages, the same as saying a sink and heave bench. It's like it's legal. We can look at it and frown upon it. Know that the bar might slide off your back, and then if it happens twice, you might get fucking disqualified from the meet, right? But
imagine getting 2 runs at it.
yeah.
If you're a kid and you do it, I imagine you get some leeway because it's 300 pounds. But I'm imagining if I did that to someone, it just wouldn't
fly.
You know, that's a little more catastrophic. Like,
Yeah,
that's how people get fucked up. Like,
exactly. So let's keep climbing up till we get to the present day. So then going through your competition history, it looked like you were competing extremely frequently, like constantly 2017, 2018, Raw Nationals, different local USAPL level meets. You were deadlifting in the mid 600s, benching 400, all as a sub 200 pound lifter or 200-pound lifter. So talk to me about like that history, and then when you decided you wanted to start going up weight classes, compete on a deadlift bar, etc.
So after I bombed out nationals, I think nationals was 2016.
Yep,
Yeah,
2016.
I bombed out nationals in 2016. I did two local meets after that. I think one was I think the first one was the Battle of the Border, and I did that, and that's kind of where a switch flipped in me because after nationals and I bombed out, I was like, man, maybe this isn't for me. And like you said, I was strong. I mean, I was yanking 585. I bombed out from like I was losing my balance and I basically couldn't hold my deadlifts at lockout, even though I was strong enough to deadlift it 3 times. It was heartbreaking. But I was still like one of the freakier strong kids there, and I was definitely making like progress in my training. But I did after bombing, you know, especially it being my second meet and me being so egotistical at my first one, I was like, man, maybe this isn't for me. You know, maybe this is not the thing that Dawson Windham's going to do. But after I did Battle of the Border, I went 9 for 9. I think it was 534. I got that 402 bench. It might have been 407. I think it was 402. And then I deadlifted 639. And on that 639 deadlift, I remember like the entire crowd was standing up and roaring. There's so many people. And I never experienced that like anything like that in powerlifting because usually like just a few people or my mom screaming, you know? Like so that and after that, I went against a guy named Orlando. He was the best 93 in my state. He was a grown man. I was 19. Me and him were talking shit to each other. He's a great guy. I ended up winning that meet. And then I think the one after that was nationals, and I won nationals. That was 2017, and that was a huge W to me from bombing out the year before. You know, that meet meant a lot to me. I think in the USAPL days, that one and my meet in Costa Rica for the NAPF were probably the two most meaningful to me. Um, and after I won nationals in 2017, I got a scholarship to Midland University. They wanted to give me like they call it a full ride. It wasn't a full ride. They gave me like 20 grand, but tuition was 40 grand because it's a private university, and I didn't really care. I need to get back in school anyway. I dropped out of college to pursue powerlifting to go win nationals. Um, I told my mom that, and she's like, you know, that's what I did. It somehow paid off, and they messaged me, contacted me, whatever. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll go. So I moved to Nebraska, and I was training in a training hall. Chloe Dublin was there, Joe Pena, Josh Peerdot, Shane Nutt. There's a bunch of world class athletes there deadlifting. Like there's like 5, 6 teenagers in this hall deadlifting 700 plus drug free. That it was different, man. There's Joe Pena squatting 9 plus, and and people walk into the door and you piss in a cup whenever they want you to, basically.
Right.
Like so I'm seeing that this is like fucking legit. And I'm coming from being a big fish in a small pond. So being around this is like I need to work harder. And that's another reason if you look, I still accumulate like a ton of fucking meets. Like I was just competing for my school. So I do some meets that's like you can look, my numbers are so low. I'm doing like pause squats and like conventional deadlifts for no reason. When I was a sumo puller, I was like long pausing my bench just because it was a local meet and I didn't care. I'm just having fun. Um,
So this scholarship was for powerlifting?
Yes, they have a bunch of reject scholarships. Like if they suck at football, they suck at baseball. If it's a real sport, they're absolute fucking garbage at it. There's like 2,000 kids at the school. It's pretty much a high school, but they give out scholarships for bowling, dance, e-sport, power. It's pretty much if no other college is going to give out a scholarship for it, they're going to do it. And I think the reason they would do it is so they could get people to attend the school. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because I'm still paying money to go
Right.
there, even though they are giving me the scholarship. But they're using that as a way to kind of bring me in. Is what it really was. It's not they painted it for me at first, but that's kind of how I saw it later on. I don't regret the experience. I didn't finish. I ended up dropping out after 2 years. It was very far away from home, very cold, and then I decided to go and get on the deadlift bar like 2 years later. I had a little hiatus where if you look, there's a gap in my resume on open powerlifting where I didn't compete for 2 years. I was not in a very good mental place for some time, and I really needed some time to get myself together. And I didn't hit a single PR during that time. I never missed a single workout. I didn't miss meals. I didn't go party, drink. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't doing dumb shit. I was revolving my life around training. And I think due to the fact that I wasn't competing and I didn't have these actual deadlines, and I know I was going to be fucking kind of exposed in front of people. And I thought I was training hard. I really did. But when I signed up for the showdown, things changed. Um, that's when it's like, hey, you can't fuck off anymore. You can't have. Whenever I was training myself during that period, during my time off, I was training 3 other people at the same time. Did you follow me when I was training those two high schoolers in my shed and screaming profanity at them?
99% sure. Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Scoop and JM. I made them fucking freaks. Scoop deadlifted like 615 and like 165, 16 years old. He ended up powerlifting wasn't for him. He switched to like boxing. And JM squatted like 540 at like 181. He was either 16 or 17. It was number one. It was like it tied the number one on open powerlifting. Neither of them ever competed. In hindsight, they're children, and I pushed them really, really fucking hard. And I don't know, like they saw something from it, and I feel like for the rest of their lives they'll know that. But like I kind of like ruined the fun for them. It wasn't about having fun. You know what I mean?
Because you
It was
saw
like,
the potential and you're just like, let's go.
like I'm pushing.
You were still young
I was
yourself.
right there with them. I was doing the same. Like we were doing sled. I was doing sled with them. Like I wasn't having them do anything I wasn't going to do. But if you're a 16-year-old kid, you kind of want to go out to the beach and hang out with your friends. You want to do other things after school. You don't want to just sit there and train for 4 or 5 hours a day. You know what I mean? Or at least I don't know. I was also like, I was hard on them, man. And that's why they were so good. They weren't like Scoop went from like a 225 deadlift to 615, and it was like SARMs and this and that. I was like, dude, I was USAPL background, and I came up like with the idea of like, hey, you should focus on your training, your nutrition, your sleep first. You should optimize all that. I'm not pushing that on a child,
Right?
by no means. If I have a client come to me now and it's a grown ass man, it's like, hey, I'm thinking about starting. I'm like, hey, you should probably not do that. Like, unless this is like how you're going to pay your bills, and you're 100% sure you're a grown man, you make your own choice. But I advise against it. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, it's not like I would recommend this to someone. Like, but man, I pushed those kids real hard. I was training my friend Taylor Ard. He was a guy. It was actually my gym was actually in his backyard, and it was always in his backyard. Everyone's like, "It's your house." It wasn't my house. I didn't have enough money for equipment when I first started. He ended up going like 50-50 with me on like a squat rack, like 445s, 4 pair of 45s and a bar for like $500. And that's how my home gym started. And then I started getting some money when I started picking up like clients and shit. And that's when it started expanding and becoming cool.
So in that 2 year kind of hiatus, taking that time off, working on yourself, kind of growing as a person, because again, you're still a young kid. You're still, 23, still figuring shit out. Like that's the norm. And around that time, 2021, I think is when you and I had, formally we had met.
We met at Hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you were down there handling.
I was handling Shane.
That was
I remember
2020.
I remember the first thing I said to you was, "Well, you put on one hell of a meet." I was mind blown seeing how cool Hybrid was. It was so much cooler than any USAPL meet I've ever fucking been to.
So that kind of helped give you the bite to try something different, right? Because
that was when I decided I was competing again. After I watched Shane go through that, and I like helped him through his day. He had 9 for 9 and Monsters Day. I looked at the crowd. I remember watching him and Jamal in the fucking hole. I just felt the intensity, the energy. I was like, dude, I want it. I want to be here. Like I gotta be here. This is where I belong. You know what I mean?
That's very cool to hear, because I didn't know that, and that obviously that brings me a fucking ton of joy. Because
Shane's first meet was my first meet, and come on this side of powerlifting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we kind of came together, and that was we. Watching him go through it, I was like, man, that's so fucking fun. That was so fun. Like I wanted to be a part of it. And honestly, like it's like I knew I could. I knew you like and. I had no expectation of the American Pro. I really like wanted to do it, like thinking like, man, I'm gonna do hybrid. Like that was my thought process. And hybrid's no longer a thing, and no one really cares to do it. And then it goes. Now we have the American Pro. Well, I didn't even really know what was gonna come. I just figured there's gonna be some like badass meets,
Exactly.
Even if it wasn't that, it'd be boss to boss. It'd be fucking something. Like the community would put together something that I could be a part of, and
Boss of Bosses was a huge inspiration for me.
I love that, man.
Level meets, it's like me. I came up. I was never like aware of the USAPL scene, because USAPL meets in Florida were a complete snooze fest. I went to a handful of them with like one or two of my masters athletes from that CrossFit gym, and they were always just like no music playing, super boring, super bland. The USPA meets here at least were a little bit more exciting. But then me, being this, 22, 23, 24-year-old back in, 2014, 2015, 2016, watching, these streams on YouTube, watching Boss of Bosses, watching Reebok Record Breakers, watching big dogs overseas, and watching these big, like, professional level meets, it gave me tons of inspiration. And it wasn't until 2017 that I was able to run my first pro level meet, which was the first Hybrid Showdown. because of, the connections that then I had connected while working for Hybrid, the people that we were able to draw in. But it's like I knew from that first one right away, I'm like, man, this is really fucking cool. And this is something that I want to be able to keep doing, although it's extremely stressful and it's not, the easiest thing to put together. And, it's very cool to be able to say that, 2016 and next year to be 20 fucking 24, and that's 7 years of running professional level meets. Because if you look at a lot of the history of the pro level meets, they're around for a few years and then they fall off.
Yeah, they're not. It's not a long-term thing, man.
Or it can be. It's just that, like, if you're willing to work, and those people have put on those meets, they have other things going on in their life, or they realize the amount of fucking money and the amount of fucking stress that goes into them, because it's hard. Anyone can throw together a local level meet in their gym, and it can still be a great time, but it's another thing to be able to bring a venue, bring production, bring tons of money to the table. And I'm very excited that next year will be my 6th or 7th time doing it.
All that just to have people like be unappreciative and talk shit about the way it was ran, like they could do it better as they sit on their ass.
Always, of course, there's always going to be those people, what I mean? Then there's going to be the people like you, and hearing that stuff from you guys that makes it worth it, that you seeing that meet that I had put together gave you that bite to, and that fire under your ass to want to do it again. To have, these professional level power lifters. I'm fucking far from being a pro level lifter myself. I enjoy it, but I see myself more as a professional in my fields around the industry. But to have those people like, yo, when's the next date coming? Like, when is it? This, that, and the other, and they have such a great time, it makes it worth it. But at the end of the day, you're always going to have haters when you're fucking on top. As corny and cliche as it sounds, I've had that for fucking years with everything that I fucking do. And, it is what it is. It's just a part of the game,
If you didn't have them, you should be more worried. You wouldn't be doing shit,
Exactly, man. Yeah, exactly. So circling back around that hybrid meet when Shane had an insane performance, and then that kind of gave you bit by the bug to compete at the showdown. And then look, from there, that's where you started making your debut on the pro circuit in the WRPF world. And your numbers went up massively getting a deadlift bar. You started putting on weight. That's some of the talking points I want to talk about now, segueing in from your lifting history, is things like how now you weighing 242 pounds, you're still so damn lean. You drink a gallon of milk a freaking day, and you're ripped as shit. So talk to me about like that progressive slow weight gain also to kind of maintain your fitness and, increase your numbers up accordingly.
So I'll try to explain this to people, and it's not like I try to be this lean. Everyone's like, "Why are you so lean? You should go 275." It's like,
it's hard. Yeah.
It's like, why don't you weigh 275 pounds at fucking 8% body fat, bro? It's not that fucking. Not everyone's Ken Cooper or Shane Hunt. Like I was a little boy, man. Like I was 200. I graduated. I was like a softer 205 or so, But at the peak of my USAPL days, I was like, whenever I competed in Costa Rica, I weighed in at like 215. Like I was never like a super heavy person. When I did 105 in USAPL, it was like I would like binge eat and maybe see 220. I was usually pretty underweight, and it's all like it has taken years and years to put on like 5 to 10 pounds for me, and it's always been like a very slow process. My diet in general, I don't eat like shit. Like it's mainly like steak, chicken, yogurt. It's very, very high protein, where I feel like where a lot of other people I watch, they gravitate a lot more towards like fat, carbs, beer, and it's a lot easier to accumulate a lot of calories that way. And I'm sure if I did that, I would get better calories. I just don't like eating like that. So I always had a very high protein diet, and for that reason, like just due to how satiating it is, it's kind of hard to overeat. You know what I mean? Try to get fat off steak and eggs. It's very, very fucking difficult to do. So majority of my diet, majority of the time, is just very, kind of whole foods, milk. It's just hard to get morbidly obese of. And over time, just with training and just being very consistent, it might be like 1 pound every 2 months, 2 pounds a month, maybe take a pound off, then gain another 2-3 pounds. It was always just very, very slow and over year. Like people are like, oh, well, I'm doing a cut, a bulk. Everyone I ever meet that does that, they're small. Like Chaz, like I've been on a bulk for 5 years. It's like, yeah, you can just look at me like, yeah, right. Like the cut bulk guys, like you're not lean nor big. Like why are you obsessing about all that? Like just eat and lift weights and get stronger.
Right.
This is
Or you
not.
could be like me, that your wife just gets pregnant and you love food and you
Yeah.
just can't stop putting on weight unintentionally. You don't even
I,
fucking work
you know,
out,
I,
you
I
know?
saw a study about that, and they were talking. Everyone talks about how the woman gains weight to prepare for the child whenever she's like getting ready to deliver. But I saw a study talking about like how men also gain a lot of weight during that period. I don't know what hormone gets screwed with or whatever, but it's talking about
Correct.
because
So
you're gonna have
I,
so many sleepless nights that you're gonna need the adipose tissue on you for that reason for energy. You know.
right. I remember I heard when she was pregnant, an Andrew Huberman podcast where he talked about it as well, and how the men do have some kind of hormonal response that reacts in preparation the same way as the woman. And
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then it all fucking happened. It is true, So I always thought I was like a hard gainer because when I was competing, I was like always trying to be 275. And every
Hmm.
competition, I was like 260, 263. I'd like get up to 267, 268, and it was impossible to. I was like fucking vomiting when I was trying to eat,
I
and then
feel
I'd be
you.
260, 262 again. But then and that's when I was competing, when I benched over 500 in comp, I weighed in like a 260 or something. Then fast forward to post pregnancy, benching 540, I weighed 285,
Damn.
unintentionally. That
Were you
wasn't
wearing like a
trying to bulk
3X, a
anymore.
4X? Like, what's
Not
that?
2x, 2x. I don't
2X?
I don't hold it like crazily,
Mm.
But yeah,
Well,
fun.
maybe I need to go have a child so I can fill out my weight class, man.
Yeah, bro. Get those female pregnancy hormones.
Oh my God, it doesn't seem worth it, bro. It does not yet, not at 25.
So competing at 242, you're still then not even a full 242. You still haven't even fully filled out the weight class, right?
No, I was two when I cut from to 220 for the showdown. I was like 230 morning weight. Um, I mean, I'm only like 6, 7 pounds heavier than that now. Like, if I really wanted to like kill myself to try to make it down, I probably could. I just don't see a point because I don't feel like I'm strong enough to cut. I'm not near a world record. I remember there was a point like the bench world record for 220. It said 551. I think it was with sleeves, and like I thought that was cool, and I wanted to go do it. But in my head, it's like John Hack benches more than that 198 in sleeves.
Right.
Does that world record really matter? So I was like,
Right.
yeah, it's like no real fucking point. I need to get stronger and fill out my class. For the American Pro, I like binge ate for weigh-ins because I was so determined to hit a weigh-in PR. Like the day before weigh-ins, I probably ate more than the day before before the meet because I was like so sick from binge eating the prior day, trying to hit a PR. And I weighed in 238 after like forced eating the shit, like drinking like smoothies with like ice cream in it that were like 3,000 calories. Like I was desperately trying. Um, and for Ghost, I was probably the heaviest I ever was. I woke up and I was like 244 the morning of, and I like saunaed for a little bit to get down. I got really really heavy in the prep for Ghost, and I think I was the strongest I ever was there too. I just didn't execute the way I needed to display that, especially showing up late on squat and my knees getting a little fucked up. But like my bench and my deadlift strength, I feel like was up there for sure. I'm probably gonna try to be that heavy again for this next one. Usually I'll gain like about 4 pounds of meat prep. Like and not just in the meat prep, but like during the off season, like I'll lose the weight a little bit. Like right now I'm a little lighter, especially since it's summertime. It's beautiful and I'm going and being so active. And then as I get in like meat prep, I don't like decreasing my activity, but I'll do it then. Because I feel
Right.
like I kind of have to just to recover and have like everyone's like, oh, meat prep's here. It's time to work so hard. For me, it's like meat prep's here. It's time to kind of sit on my ass more, hug
Right.
my ass box, and like chill out.
And inevitably your overall volume will somewhat decrease,
And due to that, like my strength goes up because I'm so recovered and so fresh for it. I see meat prep as a time of recovery, where
Mhm.
off season is like where I'm trying to like slaughter my.
Destroy.
It's like, dude, a set of 50 on leg extensions, like sleds for like 7, 8 sets, the 10x10s on lat pull downs. Like those things don't like immediately put a 1 rep max, well, immediately make your 1 rep max go up. But I saw a post the other day on how advanced lifters build their base. I'm building my base. I'm building my my baseline level of strength, not my top level. But if my baseline goes up, my top end will go up whenever I need it to. Like, and that's something a lot of people don't understand. Going into Ghost, bro, I yanked 800 pounds fast as fuck. No, I didn't get it, but like my heaviest deadlift was 727 for like 10 weeks before that,
Oh
11 weeks.
wow.
That was it. Like I was doing like I was supersetting squats with like box jumps, and then I would deadlift light after, and that was it. Because my back was kind of in shambles a little bit in prep. And he's like, "Hey, the jumps will take care of it. Don't worry about it.
There you
You'll be
go.
okay." He's like, "Yeah, I'll be there meet day." And I just like I thought about I hit 750 for 4 like 13 weeks out or something, 12 weeks out. I just kept that in the back of my mind. It's like, yeah, I can yank 800. You
You've
know,
been doing
I
it
just
long
believed
enough,
it.
like it's gonna be there. You
It's
know.
gonna. I'm not gonna get. I've dedicated my life to training. I'm training really hard for these 12 weeks. I'm eating my meals. I'm sleeping. There is no reason I'm gonna show up to the meet and be weaker for no. You know.
Right.
So it's kind of just having faith in the process and having going through it so many times. I understand what to expect for the most part. You know, even though every prep is a little different.
So take me through, like, now that we're at present day. Today, you said you're in off season. What's next? What do you have next in the competition calendar? I know earlier this year was Ghost Clash. You felt your strongest then. So
Mm-hmm.
where are we going to see you next?
So I want to execute a lot better at the American Pro is my goal. I think that's like 4.5 months now. Am I
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah.
That's October 2nd. Um, I've wrote down my goals. I put them down. I would love to get my squat back to where it was before Ghost Clash the first year when I was squatting 777. I think I can piece it together. I just got to get my technique to what it once was. Ed Cohn was helping me. I think I listened to too many other people and I changed things I shouldn't have changed. Screwed myself up. But I feel like I've been figuring out my squat again. And if I can do that, and if say I can get like a 760, 750 plus squat on the platform, then I know my bench and my deadlift will be there. And I could hit a fat total. I would love to total somewhere between 2150 to 2200. If I don't get that and I hit a total PR, I would be happy. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's my goal. You know, I'm going to work as hard as I can to get there and make it happen. And if it doesn't, then I'll try again next time because that's what powerlifting lets you do, you know?
Hell yeah, man. I love it. I love it. And like I said, the trend is pretty much everyone I'm talking to, eyes are on the American Pro.
It's
So
the most fun meet I've ever fucking done, dude. If you said on open powerlifting, I did like 32 fucking meets. The American Pro was just fucking magical.
yeah,
I
they absolutely knocked out of the park.
I had the power of God running through my veins before that third deadlift. Mika's on. Is it? He's like,
Micah.
Micah. I'm sorry, I caught myself. He was like, "What the fuck do you come here for?" I got no hands playing on the speakers, loud as fuck, like the entire crowd screaming. You know how sometimes in the gym you just feel like something coursing through your veins, like the adrenaline, the
Of
nerves.
course.
You feel it like tingle.
Yes.
I've had that times 10. Like I'd never experienced it like that in my lifting career. Mike Tyson could have been in front of me. I wouldn't give a fuck. I was just so ready for that third. I mean, my second deadlift was ass, and there's just something about the environment and the energy in the room, bro. It carried me. Um, and then I remember there's one portion before deadlifts. Squats went well, bench went well. I deleted all my social medias. I was staying off my phone. It was probably the most focused I was for me. I remember sitting there before deadlifts, and I was watching fucking Liam Newell deadlift because he was in the flight before me with John Hack. And like in my head, it's like, am I really gonna let this fucking child make me look this bad and deadlift this much? Because I was sitting there, like I remember he talked to me before, and he's like, "Hey man, you know you're the reason I got into powerlifting." And I'm like watching this kid at this pro level meet happening, just yanking like mid eights. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is not real. And I'm seeing that. I was like, man, I got to try harder. Because not only are you am I being kind of pulled forward by the people, well, pushed forward by like the people ahead of me. You know what I mean? But the people behind me and the people that are kind of like heading in the same direction, like they're also pushing me forward. So I feel like I get it in both directions on like you have to make fucking progress. You know what I mean? Like the iron sharpens iron, not only from people better than me, but like from the people I feel like I've gotten involved, just the amount of like rapid progress they make. It's like, wow, like I have to do more.
Hell yeah,
Um,
man. Well, that's going to be the stage and the platform to do it on. So it's like you said, I've seen you, I've seen your numbers, I've seen what you're capable of. I'm super excited to see you also joining all the stacked lineup of the 242 guys. It's gonna be a lot of fun. There's so many different weight class battles, and I had Brianna on last week, the 165 women, the 242 men, and the rivalries in there, which we could spend a whole other hour talking about that. We won't even dive into
I
that. But
love
that's
the
gonna
shit
be.
talk.
Oh, I know
I
it's
stay
great.
out of it. I try to be. I'm just nice to everybody, bro. I'm not beefing with nobody. But like, I love it. I find it so fucking entertaining.
Well,
I
talk to your
do.
boy Derek because I'm trying to have him on here soon.
Oh.
So hopefully he'll be one of our guests leading up also to the American Pro. So hell yeah, bro! I loved hearing your story. It was very very cool to be able to chat with you. Let everyone know where they can find you. They know what's next for you. What's your social media? Sign us out.
My social media is just my name. It's just Dawson Windham. You can search me on anything. I'm on everything. I appreciate you for having me, man. I appreciate you if you've listened this far. I hope you have a good day, and I hope everyone that listens has a good day as well.
Absolutely. I hope you guys all enjoyed episode 9 of the WRPF podcast, and we'll see you next week.